welcome to our next workshop, which is on outlining and essay structure. So today's workshop is going to have a total of 5 practices. Similar to the structure we've been following before, I would like you guys to press pause on your screen every time I indicate when you are supposed to work on your practice. Again, I would recommend that you have a Google Docs page open and that you label your practices clearly. Now, when we get to practice 5, the work that I'm going to have you do is actually going to be connected to our first essay, and I will explain more as we get there. So before we get started, have your Google Docs page open, and of course make sure you are able to press pause on your screen and take a moment to complete each practice as I explain it. Now, today's workshop is an important one. It's on outlining an essay structure. But before we even talk about that, I think it's important to know what an essay is. You know, it seems so easy and self-explanatory, but it's actually not that easy. A lot of people don't know what an essay structure is supposed to be about. So first of all, it's a piece of writing that gives us an argument. So an argument is supposed to be an author's perspective. That's what an essay is. You know, we write essays because we are trying to convey our perspectives regarding an issue. Now, essays might be formal or they might be informal. I think in colleges and universities, you're most of the time you're used to formal writing. This is the more professional writing. For the most part, formal writing uses third person. Informal writing tends to use more personal experiences. Which one do I prefer? Honestly, I myself write with a combination of both. I use personal experiences, so I do use, the pronoun I whenever I write, but then sometimes I do try to sound more scholarly and more professional. So I think that a combination of both is probably the best way to go. And then, of course, essays can be found in all kinds of disciplines. And we're talking about essays that you can find in politics, education, entertainment. I'm sure you've read a lot of English essays, but there's a lot out there, and they're all structured differently depending on which discipline they're from. I also put a fun fact here. I don't know if you guys ever read opinion pieces in newspapers and magazines. Well, these opinion pieces are essays. So maybe you might want to go to LA Times, New York Times, whatever news site you're interested in, and check out their opinion pieces. You're going to find a whole bunch of essays. And another interesting fact I would like to mention is that essays are used for the most part in areas like the United States for our application process. So those personal statements that you had to write in order to get accepted to a university? Well, that's what I'm talking about. And the US does that, Canada does that, and it's basically used as sort of like a way to introduce the student to the university in the application process. I've helped so many students with their application process throughout the years, and all of them are essays. So don't think that an essay is necessarily the 5-paragraph format. It really isn't. It really depends on what you're writing the essay for, and of course what discipline it pertains. So I wanted to also go over the basic structure of essays, and again, it differs whether you're writing an essay in a class like an English class or a class like sociology class or psychology class. Now in English, we follow the MLA. I put that right here. What's the MLA? The MLA is the Modern Language Association, and they have their own set of rules that scholars are supposed to follow. Now, what exactly are these rules? To be honest with you, these rules are constantly changing, which is why I can't tell you, off the top of my head, every single rule that MLA imposes. But for the most part, MLA structure and formatting, they have rules like you have to double space your work, you have to use 12-point font, you have to use Times New Roman font, and other little tiny rules like that. So if you want to get a full breakdown, I do have an MLA link for you guys. That's in our class website underneath week number 1. And you can feel free to consult that. And then, of course, you'll get a better sense of what MLA is. Now, MLA says, and this is, true for MLA and APA, that the basic essay structure consists of an introduction, a body section, and a conclusion. Now, this doesn't mean that your essay has to be 3 paragraphs. It just means that the structure is supposed to have 3 parts. One part is the intro, one part is the body, one part is the conclusion. Fun fact, your introduction can be more than 1 paragraph. Another fun fact, your body paragraphs can be several paragraphs. Your conclusion can also be more than 1 paragraph. A lot of people didn't know this. So when I talk about the structural parts, I'm not talking about paragraph numbers. All right, we are ready for step number 1. Step 1 is captivating your audience, and this is part of the introduction process. And as part of step 1, we have to know what the purpose of our essay is. So every time you're taking a class and a teacher assigns an essay for you to complete, there's always going to be a goal behind that essay. So you have to figure out, because sometimes your teachers don't reveal it explicitly, you have to figure out what is the purpose of this essay. So what does this teacher want me to do? Does this teacher want me to convince my audience? So to be swayed one way or another so that my audience agrees with my argument? Does my teacher want me to inform my audience? Purely informative essays are not typical in English classes because we don't just write to inform, but hey, maybe your teacher just wants you to write a report on a certain issue and inform your audience about it. Number 3, does your teacher want you to persuade your audience? And the difference between convincing your audience and persuading your audience is that persuasion leads to action. When you convince your audience, they agree with you at the end, but you're not really asking them to take any action. For persuading them, you are asking them to take action. Number 4, to make decisions. So maybe the purpose of your essay is to help your audience make a proper decision. These are the kinds of writings where you sort of do like a pro and con, and then you help your audience decide which is the better route to take. Next, another purpose is to understand or explore. This happens when an issue is kind of confusing for your readers and maybe they don't have enough information about it. And so you write an essay to help them understand it better. And finally, another purpose might be to reflect. And this happens all the time. Sometimes teachers assign reflective essays where they ask the writer to reflect on their own life and then to bring their own personal experiences into their work, and that can be another purpose. Now, if you notice, there's typically about 6 purposes to choose from, and for the most part, your teacher might clearly identify what the purpose is that they're aiming for, but sometimes they don't identify it, and you have to figure it out based on the way that the teacher has written the prompt. So, for practice number 1, I am going to have you guys read 2 prompts that I have created for my sample class. So I actually do teach these prompts, and it's in a advanced composition course. So what I'm asking you guys to do is in your Google Docs page, go ahead and label practice number 1. And then I'm going to ask you guys to answer this question. What is the purpose of this essay I am asking my students to write? And each one is a separate essay. So this is essay number 1 and this is essay number 2. So I've given you 2 separate prompts. So for practice 1, I would like you to identify what the purpose is of the prompt up here. So out of these 6 purposes, which one do you think I'm asking them to do here? And then read the second one and again answer the question, which one do you think I'm asking them to do from the 6 purposes I identified? Now look, it's going to be really easy for you to be like, all right, for essay 1, it's this purpose. Like let's say you're saying to reflect and then you just write to reflect underneath. That's not good enough. I want an explanation that follows what you think. So not only do I want you to identify the purpose, but I want you to identify why you think that's the purpose. Like a few sentences for each prompt will be perfectly fine. And that will be practice number 1. So please go ahead, press pause on this computer screen, and then complete practice 1. We are now ready for step number 2. Now, the second part of writing a captivating introduction and captivating our readers is clarify the opening context. And we talked about context before. We did a little practice with that. The context is the background information. So you might want to answer questions like who, what, when, where. And the context includes historical events. It could include facts about the author. It could include more information about the audience, or it could include more information about the issue you're, discussing in your essay. So I put a little note down here. You may want to hook your audience with the use of creativity. And this is part of, your introduction as well. So when you're writing an intro, you might want to do it in a creative way. You might want to ask some rhetorical questions, maybe, come up with an anecdote, which is a little story that you tell your readers, maybe an analogy like a comparison as a way to capture your audience. Now, the next step is going to be practice number 2. Please clearly identify this in your Google Docs page. Here's what I would like you to do. It's important to provide readers with enough background so that your argument makes sense to them. Below is a sample introduction. It was written in 2009 by Roger Ebert. Answer these questions about the intro after you are finished reading it. So here is the introduction. The title of Roger Ebert's essay is Go Gentle into That Good Night. And here's the intro. I would like you guys to read the intro on your own. So as soon as you press pause, go ahead and read the intro and then answer these questions. So this is going to require some research. So if you guys have your smartphone handy, you might want to go online, or if you have, a internet browser open, go ahead and research this. Who's Roger Ebert? Give us a little information. What's the author writing about? The introduction hints it. So based on the little clues that the author gives us, what do you think he is writing about? What major event inspired Ebert to write this? So again, this is going to require some research on your part. And finally, who is his intended audience? So you are answering all 4 questions in relation to this introduction, and those 4 questions will help to clarify the context of Roger Ebert's essay. And that is practice number 2. Go ahead, press pause, and complete this practice.